Hello and welcome back to another edition of Super Necessary. Today I am joined by not quite the first Australian, someone has beat you to it on the podcast, Robert Whittaker. Just a little shout out there.
All right.
But certainly the biggest Australian and probably the biggest person we've ever had on the podcast. Charles Joyner, thank you very much for joining me, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Cheers for having me on. That's a esteemed company I'm in there, so can't complain
Absolutely.
about that.
um, so obviously you're coming fresh off a win over the last weekend over Branden Guest. You happy with your performance?
Yeah, it would have been nice to get the finish towards the end, but it's good to get the 3 rounds. I felt sharp. Um, but he was tough. Like I hit him with solid shots. I was kicking him to the body hard. I was jabbing his head off. I cut him with some elbows, but he just sort of hung in there and kept fighting and sort of yeah, and just and I don't know. I felt like he was sort of like quite quickly, maybe after the first round, he sort of was just content surviving, and then sometimes it's hard to finish people that are just you know looking to see out the rounds. But no, I was happy.
I mean, considering you've finished people with body kicks in MMA since you started, like, were you surprised how much damage you could actually take?
Yeah, because even the first one, like literally the very first one I threw, I thought it landed clean, and he didn't even show that it hurt him, but it definitely must have hurt him, but he didn't show it on his face. His body was red, and I was just thinking he'd be sore the next day. But yeah, no, I was fair play to him. He was tough. Like he could take damage.
Yeah. You say there, like, he didn't show that it hurt him when you connected with the body shot, and what does what goes through your mind in that, like, split second when, like, he shows no reaction to the shot and, you're thinking that was a good one and his face is just nothing, like, what goes through your mind there?
Uh Yeah, because normally, if I land, especially the left body kick, I feel like there's at least a grimace. So you definitely, I think I'm experienced enough now where I'm just sort of just I don't even think about it. I just go, oh, I'll just keep working it, and I'll keep landing other shots, or I'll try and set something else up. But definitely, probably when I was less experienced, I would have been thinking, oh shit, like just panicking a little bit. But yeah, I think you sort of when you get more experience, you know that it would have still hurt him. He just didn't show it,
Yeah,
So whereas before, I would have thought because he didn't show it, oh, it didn't hurt him.
yeah,
If you get what I mean.
yeah. And I suppose it's his experience as well. He probably obviously doesn't want to give anything up to you, doesn't want to show any weakness to you. So
Definitely.
I suppose it's just experience all round there. I mean, you are quickly making a name for yourself in Cage Warriors. I mean, it's only your third fight there, but you are. I think you are becoming a bit of a name already. Like, are you surprised how fast you're gaining momentum in Cage Warriors?
Um, I mean, I, I knew that my striking would be good because I've trained with lots of MMA guys, guys in the UFC, and I feel like I've always been like, even when I was just kickboxing, my striking you know, was up there. But obviously the issue was then the grappling, and in my loss, it was my second MMA fight, and it was the grappling that sort of just drain. If you watch that fight, like I'm doing really well with the strike, and then as soon as it starts grappling, it just drains my gas tank straight away, and then I felt awful, and especially in the latter rounds, and so there was always that question of whether in my head of whether when someone starts grappling me, or if the fight goes past the first round and there's some wrestling exchanges, how I would manage. But so I always felt confident in my striking, and then I felt like this fight has shown to me that I can have an MMA fight for 3 rounds at a fairly high pace and still feel pretty fresh at the end. So I'm not really answered your question, but I knew my striking would be up there,
Yeah,
but I'm pleased now that my defensive wrestling's stacking up and my actual MMA is stacking up, and it's like a nice, it feels like best case scenario now where I am progressing through the Cage Warriors ranks, and I'm showing that I can be an MMA fighter, not just a striker.
Yeah. I mean, and I suppose outside of the wrestling, which has you haven't had, all the time. Obviously, you're fairly new in MMA, I'd say still.
Mm.
Um, but you've got the look. 6'8". You're not a small guy. You're a big dude. People take notice when they see you. You've got the striking, obviously, from your kickboxing. So like, if you can get the MMA on point, which you're obviously starting to do, then you're a dangerous prospect for anybody.
Yeah, yeah, no, cheers, appreciate that. And yeah, I think that's how I felt. I think I always, like you say, with the, being so big as well. It, for whatever reason, everyone just loves to see big people fight. I don't like. It just, it's like I don't know. It's like like it's like the old Pride days when they used to get like a 7'8" guy that couldn't fight and just chuck him in there with someone. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
people just love to see it. So and last year I was trying to be a middleweight, and that was my thought process on that as well. I was like, I know I can make the weight, um, and I just wanted to be this like freakishly big middleweight because I felt like the UFC would just look at that and go like, oh, 6'8" middleweight, let's get him in there.
yeah,
But it just ended up being too much weight to cut in the end.
yeah. No, I can certainly understand that. Um, so I mean, you spent 16 years, I believe it was, of your life in Australia.
Yeah,
Um, what was it that prompted the move to the UK, or back to the
yeah,
UK rather?
yeah. So it was during it was 2021, and it was when Australia just went into this ridiculous lockdown because of COVID. We'd been open and there were fights happening and we were able to train, and I'd had a few fights in between the two lockdowns, and then just lockdown, and everyone was sort of saying, oh, this is it now, we're going to be like this for a few years, there's probably not going to be fight shows for a couple of years, gyms are going to be, because we weren't allowed to leave sort of like a kilometer away, or like a mile away for around of radius around our house. We weren't allowed to, the police would fine you if they caught you out. Like it was just all these ridiculous things.
Mm,
And I'd seen that the UK were open, people were having fight shows, people were training, and I've got the UK passport, and all I had to do was, I mean, I had to get permission from the government to leave, but I sort of said, I'm a UK citizen, so they couldn't really stop me from coming here.
yeah,
And I just thought, oh, I'm just gonna give it a go and see what it's like. Worst case scenario, I can just, if it doesn't work out, I can just come back to Australia when the lockdown ends, if that happens. But also, it was a little bit of a risk because I didn't know if I would be able to get back into Australia. So
mm,
I was leaving and just sort of, burning the boats and just going for it. And I ended up in Liverpool because Ross Pearson, who I know from Australia, recommended going to train at Four Corners at John Gillies'
mm.
gym, and that's sort of the first place that I stopped off at on the way.
Wow. So how long was it after you left Australia? Did they open up again?
To be fair, it wasn't even that long. It was like, I think it was, I left in the end of August, and I'm pretty sure there were fight shows like in December. So
Okay. Mm,
you bet. Yeah, well, as soon as I got to the UK, I realised that to progress further, this is where I needed to be,
yeah.
because it's just in, there's so many more people doing MMA. I'd say MMA is at a higher standard. There's much bigger shows. You've got access to Europe. You've got access to the US. Pretty quickly from being here, I had two fights, kickboxing fights in the UK, and then I was fighting in Italy, and then I fought in the US. So it was like you don't get those opportunities in Australia. I'd
Mm,
only really fought in Sydney before then, so I could see that it was the place to be to develop fully.
yeah. It's kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. Then,
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
do you think you would have left Australia if you'd have known like that it was going to open up a few months later?
I probably, if I knew it was going to be a, yeah, if I knew it was going to be that soon, I probably would have just waited it out, to be
Mm,
honest.
Yeah,
But so it literally, yeah, was a blessing in disguise, because I don't think I'd be at the point that I'm at now if I hadn't have left, because I do sort of, you know, credit a lot of my development to Andrew Fisher at TFT. I think I feel so lucky that I came across him as a coach and the gym, because I just feel like it's the perfect place for me.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I know you do. Obviously, Australia's home. Do you get a chance to go back there often?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been back the past 2 times with my girlfriend at Christmas. So it's like a nice sort of like bookend to the year, because it feels like I get a little bit of a break in the sun, get to see family, friends, and then I'm back training hard for the year while I'm here and trying to get fights in. So yeah, so every Christmas we're aiming to go back.
Yeah, that's nice. Um, so obviously had the first 10 years of your life in the UK. Um, did you find like when you were coming back, was there any like culture shocks that you had at all?
Um, not not really. Like I'd come back obviously for trips as well, and I've still got
Mm,
family over here. Um, you know, I feel like and because I'd been sort of involved in, obviously it is different to Australia, but there's also similarities. But I was aware of the differences, and then I think fight, like, gym cultures are pretty similar,
mm,
between Australia and England. So it was like going from a gym culture in Australia to then coming to one in England. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We are similar. I think Aussies and Brits.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
definitely.
easy to integrate. Definitely. Um, so as you mentioned, you started off in kickboxing. You managed to get a great record in it. Fought on some good shows. What made you switch to MMA?
Yeah, it was just, I'd always had in the back of my mind that I was going to do MMA eventually. The a little bit of the ego of, you could be the best striker in the world, but if you've got no grappling, you could fight, an amateur that's been grappling for maybe a year, and they'd just be able to probably take you down and beat you up. So I always had in my head, there's the ego there, just saying like, oh, I wanted to be in, and it's being, if you're the best MMA fighter in the world, you're the best fighter in the world.
Mm,
But you could be the best kickboxer in the world, but that doesn't mean you're the best fighter in the world. So it was that, and then obviously, financial side of things, the MMA. I mean, obviously boxing's probably, the top guys still get the bigger paychecks, but MMA's, where the majority of the money is now, I'd say. And also just, I ended up being in in Thai Tuivas's corner for the it was during COVID, actually, in 2020, for the Stefan Struve fight, and it was on Fight Island. It was Khabib's retirement fight against Gaethje, and just being in that environment, I just thought, oh, this is where I want to. This is who I want to fight for. I want to be in the UFC. Like, there's nothing else like it.
yeah. So did you have an interest in MMA when you were younger? Were you watching it as a kid and stuff like that?
Not really. Not when I was a kid. I wasn't really fighting. Just terrified me when I was a kid. I was into like footy and basketball. Like, I was always into sport and always wanted to do some sort of sport. But yeah, I remember being younger, and there was a boxing fight on the TV, and I remember just looking at it and just thinking like, why would you want to do that? Just just go and walk out and fight in front of a bunch of people. Like, that just seems like, I used to get nervous before football games, and then I remember thinking how nervous I'd be before a fight. But yeah, so just, I don't know, just sort of, it was literally the rise of Conor McGregor that got me into it, and then I just thought, oh, I'm just going to train, and then I ended up being, because of my physical attributes, being quite good at it and doing quite well sparring in the gym and stuff like that, and then I ended up fighting, and it just sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I can't say I'm a fan of McGregor myself, but like the amount of people he will have got into the sport is just absolutely ridiculous. You've got to take your hat off to him in that sense. I mean, I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't call myself a fan of his now because it's just, but I just sort of observe him now, and it's just like he is entertaining still, but it was just the mindset and just how how he used to just say what he was going to do, then he did it, and he seemed just to create things out of nothing,
Mm.
and he literally did just bring the sport to the eyes of so many people, like myself included. I'd heard about it before, and I'd seen some things, but I really knew not much about it, and
Mm.
it just opened my eyes to it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I've got to say about him, he always had that belief in that the way put himself across. Like you just never thought he was going to lose, even if you wanted
Mm,
him to or didn't want him to. Whatever you thought, you just were looking at him and think he's going to win just because of the way he
yeah,
presented himself and stuff like that. So I think his mindset, certainly at the start of his career and when he was at his peak, is definitely something to be admired.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember even during the Mayweather fight, and then he was getting battered, and I remember just we were watching it, and I was just going, "No, he's gonna knock him out. He's gonna like it." Just that belief, the belief
Yeah,
he had in himself, just people that supported him just had that as well, and it was
yeah.
delusion. It was pure delusion. But but yeah,
Um, so obviously, when you started training in MMA, how difficult was it for you to like? How difficult was the training initially?
oh, it was yeah, it was hard. I was training with Justin Burlinson, Jack Grant straight away, two great grapplers,
Yeah,
and it was just yeah, it was just and then I mean I was getting knocked off, you know, people that had been grappling a little bit longer than me, so it was a massive sort of ego check as well, which I knew was going to happen when I started training it. But you know, because I felt, striking wise, I felt, I'd kickboxing, I'd spar with people, MMA guys, other kickboxers. I'd spar with boxers, and I'd do well, and I never really felt like out of my depth. And
yeah,
then you start grappling, so you've had that experience where you feel like you're an elite striker, and then you start something else that's also fighting related, the grappling, and you're just literally, I don't know, just felt like a fish out of water. Like had no idea what to do, just getting dominated. But yeah, so it was hard. It was hard physically and mentally and emotionally.
yeah. I can imagine. Like, I mean, talk about starting at the deep end. Like you say, with Burlington and Grant there. Like, I mean, that's some way to start an introduction into MMA. Um, what kind of level would you say your grappling's at the minute then?
You see, for me, it's how we train at TFT is that everything's MMA focused. So it's all. I feel like Fisher just gets us drilling or gets us working on the things that we need for MMA. So then, I feel like I can hold my own with people. I feel like I've got submissions, but it's not like I'm not specifically working, BJJ. I'm not working off my back,
Mm,
and I'm not working, or I'm not working. What do you call it? Like open play wrestling, where you're starting in a crouch stance, because none of those things are things that I would be aiming to do at the moment.
yeah,
But I mean, I felt like the fight on Saturday was a good indication for myself where my grappling was. I was able to, Brandon's a guy that's like a well-rounded MMA fighter. He's been doing MMA for years, and grappling wise, he couldn't do anything with me. He struggled to take me down. Then when he got me down, I popped straight back up. Um, so I feel like it's in a good spot. I feel like it's in a good spot, for my skill set. I know what I need to do to get my skill set to be effective.
yeah. And I suppose, would you say it's been easier for you to pick up the techniques with MMA because on that side of things you wear a blank canvas, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess from like developing my kickboxing skills, I developed a pretty good learning mindset and you know, you get sort of a body awareness which allows you to pick things up quickly. And I think honestly, I am blessed to have Fisher as a coach. I don't think many people realize how good he is. Probably because people can't understand him when he speaks.
Hmm.
But he's the way he breaks down techniques and gets you. His amount of knowledge is just unbelievable, and he knows exactly. He's got so many fighters with different styles in the gym, and he's able to get people to learn the techniques that they need. Yeah, so yeah, with Fisher, he just basically, he takes the time out for, all his pro fighters, and he has a plan of exactly what we need to work on, and it'll be different. He might have 10 guys that he's working with throughout the week, and it'll be different things that he wants us to work on. And he's watching all of our sparring rounds, watching our opponents, and yeah, he just sort of yeah, he's just got a unique mind for MMA, I'd say, and I feel like our gym doesn't really get the respect it deserves, but I think it's getting there. I think it's getting there.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the gym, obviously TFT. I mean, how good would you say the team is in there at the minute?
Oh, it's we got so many guys that are sort of just I'd say we've got people like Phil DeFreeze who KSW heavyweight champion. I think he's on like a 10 fight unbeaten streak.
Hmm.
Um, Probably one of the most dominant heavyweight grapplers in MMA at the moment. And then you've got obviously Mick Parkin in the UFC. He's got 4-0 in the UFC. Just got the 100 grand bonus in the last one. You've got people like James Hendon, Justin Burlinson, Fisher himself. He's not fully. He's half retired. He said he's retired, but then he's always flirting with coming back as well.
Yeah,
Um, and then just like other pros coming up, Nathan Hayward, Dan Bainbridge, just a massive amateur team, probably about 20, 25 amateurs that are fighting. It's just, there's Paul Elliott who fights on one championship. Like we just got so many guys that are, and everyone's got a great attitude. So I mean, the rounds that we get in the gym every day are just phenomenal. So it's, I mean, I feel like I just get beat up in the gym every day, and then I'm able to put on a good performance. It's funny, like it's how that works, but yeah, it's great.
yeah. I mean, you talk about some of the names there, as you say, and I suppose it's got to be good for you that you train with people like that every single day, and then it's almost as if going into a fight. It's like you're training with higher caliber people than some of your opponents sometimes. With obviously no disrespect to your opponents, but it's the truth.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something I always tried to do with the kickboxing as well, like spar people that were better than who I was going to be fighting. And then I think it's important as well that you also want to be training with people that are your level and also people that you're better than as well. So you can, you're not always just getting beat up, because then you're not, if you're going with much more experienced people, you're just not able to practice anything.
Hmm.
Um, and then you see that with fighters sometimes as well, when they've just been getting beat up all camp and they've never had the chance to like develop any offense as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, it's a great gym, like great environment. Yeah, it's a good place.
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, obviously it's not long left of the year now, but are you planning on getting another fight in before the year's done, or?
Yeah, definitely. In the plans, uh, Cage Warriors Newcastle, which is November 23rd. So that was what I think. Originally, Cage Warriors wanted. So I fought on Newcastle at the start of the year, and then May. So it was kind of midway through the year, and then Cage Warriors wanted me to wait till November for the next Newcastle show, but I said I'd do the Newcastle show, but I want to fight in between that as well, because I just want to be active. I feel like I want to develop these skills. Um, so yeah, so obviously no opponent or anything yet, but that's the plan. Newcastle in November.
Yeah, good stuff. So before I let you go, mate, I thought we'd end this one a little bit differently. Obviously, you being both an Aussie and a Brit,
Hmm.
I thought we'd have a little. this or that, Australian versus UK. Uh,
Okay.
mainly food and drink, but there's one that's not quite that in there as well. So first one to start with, we've got Tim Tams or Penguins.
Tim Tams.
Tim
Gonna go
Tams.
Tim Tams.
Yeah, I thought that'd win. To be fair, I've googled most of these, so if any of them like not something that's popular in Australia, I apologise.
No, that's all good.
So next one, chicken salt on chips or chips and gravy.
Oh, see, I'd go both, but I'd probably say chips and gravy, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, but I'd do chicken salt on the chips and the gravy.
Right, okay. That sounds like it'd be better than both, yeah, on their
Yeah.
own. Next one, Vegemite on toast or beans on toast.
Oh, probably. I'd probably go beans on toast, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So next one, Lamington or Battenberg.
Oh, Lamington.
Lamington look
Yeah.
nice. I've not come across that before, but looking at the pictures, it look nice. I must admit.
Yeah, yeah. No, they are nice. They are nice.
So 4X Gold or Carlin.
See, I haven't drunk for years, but I feel like 4X is like, I never liked that one. I was more of a VB man, but
Right, okay.
4X always felt like tasted a bit weak, so I'd probably go Carling, to
Right,
be
okay.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Foster's, but that's probably offensive to an Australian.
Well, Foster's is like a British drink.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
terrible advertising. Solo or Iron Brew.
See, I haven't had many. I'd go. I do like an iron brew, but I'd go solo. I had an iron brew after the fight on Saturday. Actually, being in Scotland, I had to.
Yeah, definitely. So this one isn't a food related one, and this is a bit different. So Aussie rules football or straight up normal football.
Oh yeah, straight up normal football. See, Aussie rules is like. I'm in New South Wales, and Aussie rules is mainly popular in Victoria, which is like
Right.
Melbourne. It's more like rugby leagues bigger in New South Wales. But yeah, I mean, I never been a massive fan of AFL, and even like, yeah, football is one of my favorite sports. So yeah,
And this one is purely in the, I mean, the British option isn't really just a British option, but I had to include this just for obviously, with your training with Tai Tuivasa, I had to include this: a shoey or a shot.
Uh, probably I don't know. They're both gross, aren't they? Probably a shoey. You got to go cultural. The cultural shoey.
Yeah, that's it. It's culturally important.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I was going for. Yeah, that was great. Well, look, thanks very much for joining me. Obviously, congratulations on the great win last weekend. And yeah, just looking forward to seeing you in action again before the year's out.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime, mate.